Hello and welcome to another edition of Portia Raw and Real. This is the podcast, the conversation after the Portia show conversation. Kind of let our hair down a little bit, have a different kind of a conversation, but we're also kind of picking up on some of the things that we did not get to discuss in some of your favorite episodes of Portia. One of our favorite episodes of Portia has to do with something that impacts all of us in one form or another: voting, especially during these election cycles. Everybody gets to talking and fussing and fighting and going back and forth. We're not doing that here. We are just talking about why we vote. And we wanted to bring back two women who were a critical part of the conversation. We had a larger panel, but we always like to bring it back to the ladies when we can. So joining us today, two beautiful women that I am honored to know and have known for quite some time. Miss Loretta Green. She is an Air Force veteran, a cancer survivor, a registered voter, and has been voting in just about every election. You can't remember one that you haven't voted in, right?
No, I cannot.
Since 1960.
Yes.
And we thank you for your service. We thank you for being a role model of what it means to participate in this democracy. We're going to talk a little bit more about your background in just a moment. I also want to introduce Coy Malone, a woman of many, many talents, but in her heart, an activist, a social justice warrior. And I hate to put retired in front of it, but you said retired exotic dancer.
Now retired, yes.
Now retired exotic dancer. So how did we end up bringing an exotic dancer and an Air Force veteran together? The story is amazing. We're literally, pardon me, mama, going from polls to polls, right?
Yes.
Because you both have had a really significant role in trying to get people to the polls, particularly for you, Coy, young black men, and for you, Miss Loretta, young people in general.
Yes.
So I want to talk first about how we did it in a way that went viral for you. Let's talk about what it means just to vote, the privilege of voting, the right to vote, the act of voting. Why is that so important for you, Miss Loretta?
Well, it's important to me because people died so that we could have this opportunity, and the struggles that people went through so that we could go to the polls and make a difference. So it's extremely important to me.
And let's talk about the first time you voted. How old were you when you voted for the first time?
I was 25.
And this was in Mobile, Alabama, right?
Mobile, Alabama in 1960.
Which we understand. When we say Alabama in 1960, we were talking about a very different time and a very different Alabama.
Yes.
And so different. You actually have a document, your poll tax exemption certificate. Let's talk about what this is.
Okay. Back in those days, part of what they used for voter suppression was a poll tax. And it was $1 or $2. But in those days, we were only making $1 or $2 a week. So $2 would feed your family for the week. So you had to make a choice. Do you vote or do you feed your family?
Right. So
only maybe 10% of the black citizenship was able to go to the polls.
And that's on top of the restrictions, right? Count how many, guess how many jelly beans are in this jar.
Right.
Say the,
Constitution.
Give us the preamble to the Constitution.
Right.
All of these other things that were in place.
Right.
Write a full sentence. So many other barriers. On top of that, if you could get past those hurdles, then where's my $2, right?
That is correct, yes.
You had an exemption, though, because of your service in the Air Force. Explain.
Yes. Because I was Air Force veteran, I did not have to pay the $2, but I still had to have the certificate. And through those days, you weren't knowledgeable enough about how you go to apply for exemption. Mm-hmm. So some people went around to the houses. That's how I was able to get.
Somebody
came to my home, knocked on the door, and said they were registering black people to vote. And especially if you're a veteran, you got exemption. And I was saying, what? You didn't even know that at the time.
And I think that's important to note because at the time we haven't even gotten to the passage of the Civil Rights Act yet. And so to have someone going around, because there were pockets of where this, the activism was all over the South in particular,
Yes.
but pockets of where there were people who had the ability, the access to get to folks and say, here, you can register. Coy, I'm curious, when you look at this and you see this dated 1960, February 15th, 1960, what goes through your mind when you see the document that Miss Loretta had to carry to get to vote?
This is a real thing.
Without a fee.
And it just, it's mind-boggling to actually see this in person. These are things that we learned about voter suppression, and we learned about what it was to be a black person before the civil rights. But to actually see a piece of the history in front of me, it's heart-wrenching to think about, what did you have to go through before this came into play?
Yeah.
What did you have to go through after this? It just makes the importance of voting that much higher,
more
for me.
significance. Which brings us to why you, in 2020, which we all recall was a heated election cycle, if we'll just leave it there, right? You were really passionate, you and your colleagues at a very popular exotic dance establishment here in Atlanta,
Yes.
went out of your way to work with documentary filmmakers to create Get Your Booty to the Polls. Let's talk about Get Your Booty to the Polls. If you've not heard, that means you were under a rock. And that's okay, because it was still something a lot of people are talking about.
Yes. Oh my goodness. This was a viral voting campaign that we weren't expecting to go viral. We just wanted to get the message out there for everyone to participate in voting. No matter who you vote for, make sure you just get out there and participate. And oh my goodness, the comments, the praises, the jeering.
Right. Let's talk before we get to the comments and the praising and the jeering, because there was a whole lot of it.
There was a lot.
Just the dragging was just incredible. Describe what you all, for those who haven't seen it yet. I'm sure everybody right now is Google Get Your Booty to the right.
Yes.
But what do you see when you watch this video? What were you guys doing?
When I see this video, I see a bunch of beautiful women encouraging everyone to vote, not just for the president, but for the DAs, district attorneys, judges. And they also talk about bail, which happened to be something that was listed on the ballot at the time. Different issues that people might not be aware of, and the importance of voting.
Right.
So literally, it was just an encouragement for everyone to get out and vote, understand what it's for, understand why you're doing it. And they were also given instructions on how to vote,
Right.
as well as resources on where you can figure out how to register, where to register, and so forth.
And in the middle of all of that, though, of course, in the conversation, in the wonderful lessons we're getting, we're also getting some really very clear dance moves.
Yes.
On poles, in two pieces. I mean, if you were in your work attire,
Yes.
shall we say,
With
from head to
American
toe.
flag.
With American flags,
Out
Old
colors,
Glory. The
and
messaging
yes.
was very clear here. When you dropped it like it's hot. You know what I mean? Trying to get people to understand this is how serious we are. You were able to, and when we met in 2020, when I did a story about this here in Atlanta, you talked about the fact that black men came up to you and they were like, wow, this is really, I didn't know I could vote. Because there were some, maybe had some minor, issues on their record and felt like they were no longer able to vote. Tell me about the conversations that you had with people who learned something from this and those who were like, what are you ladies doing?
So for the men in particular that approached me about the Get Your Booty to the Poll campaign, and particularly black men, a lot of them were unaware that they had the right to vote because of their past criminal history. Whether it was something minor or a major infraction, they weren't even aware of the fact that, hey, there are processes that you can go through to appeal in order to reinstate your right to vote.
Right.
Some of them assumed that just because they had been arrested before on something minor that doesn't disqualify you from voting, they thought it automatically disqualified them from voting.
And that was your target audience. You weren't
Yes.
necessarily trying to reach the ladies in special spaces who are already active. Miss Loretta, you remember the campaign? Did you see
Yes.
the video?
No, I didn't see the video, but I heard all the talk about the campaign.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about it.
What did you think about that type of approach? Very different.
Well, anything that's going to get someone to the poll, I'm for it. I mean, it's the purpose of it. If you're going to get someone to the poll, whatever means that you can do to get them to the poll, young, old, in between, I'm for it, and I'm with Coy 100%.
Yes. And what did the critics say?
The critics,
because you ended up doing a different version of the video that was a far more Mrs. I don't want to say what really comes to mind, but it was a far more covered up, more conservative, because I want to be very careful in not using language that is critical, as if one version of it was a bad way to do it or a good way to do it. Both were effective.
They were very effective. It was so effective that the pushback that we got pretty much was saying that, oh, these are a bunch of dancers that are pushing people to vote for a certain political party. They don't know what they're talking about. I mean, why are they being hypersexualized? And the thing about it is that visual worked. We helped galvanize voters so much in Georgia that the number of voters that registered and voted that year broke records for Georgia's all-time voting rates.
And you guys got national attention for this. Did you feel like you were being hypersexualized, or did you feel like this is my voice, this is my body, this is my voice?
It's my body, it's my voice. Like, I have dealt with some crazier experiences dancing at clubs here in Georgia and in other states. So for me to actually use my voice and my artistry, that I like to call it, my pole artistry, to help people understand, hey, this is something that affects you, and you literally have the power to affect you and other people around you. I was elated to be in that type of environment.
Yeah. And you spend a lot of time afterwards, long after the video, still talking to people, going and speaking to groups. Miss Loretta, when you go to the polls the way you do every election, not just the presidential election, but everything, you carry this because you want people to see. What do you say when you are carrying this and talking to people?
Well, I go down the line, and I have it in my hand, and especially I try to target young people, although I target everyone, but the young people is really my prime target for this. And I show it to them, and I ask them, do you know what this is? And 90% of the time, they say no, never heard of it, never knew you had to pay. And I try to explain it to them, and then I tell them to Google it, because you can find more information. Everybody got a phone, okay? So you carrying that phone around, use it, Google it, and then know why you're voting. Know what happened that you couldn't vote, why you couldn't vote, why we couldn't vote at a time. So I just try to explain the history and the importance of them voting, and also to tell them to pass the information on to the next generation. That's one thing too. We need to pass our history on.
Yeah.
I know my daughter went to the poll with me from the time I could carry her.
Yeah.
To the point that she said, "Can I touch that machine? Can I do this?"
Not yet, baby.
No,
not yet.
not yet. And I have to tell her, no, but that's what you have to do to educate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I never ask a lady her age, but you are very proud of your digits. May I ask?
Yes, I am 88, and I will be 89 in May, and I am very proud of it.
And as you should be, because there is no part of 88 that anybody sees, and that's why we were so tickled when during the show, during the conversation, in a commercial break, you said something about, I want to learn how to, what did you say? Refresh me, because I was
I asked
like, what just happened?
I asked her to teach me how to pole dance.
Would you be? Now, I know you're an avid bowler. I've called sometimes before you get ready to bowl.
Yeah.
I know how active you are.
Right.
Would you really give it a shot?
Yeah, that's good exercise. I want to stay fit. I want to stay fit.
And there is no age restriction on pole dancing.
Right.
So, yeah, we could probably make it happen.
Really?
I'll get on that pole.
I mean, okay. I can't believe I'm about to say. Did you just say I'm going to get on the pole? Listen, okay, if Miss Loretta Green is getting on the pole, then I will, watch this, join her. You'll walk me into that one.
It's a girl show.
It is a girl show. Everyone, but we know the fellas are watching and listening. I wonder how important it is, these types of conversations. I mean, we literally have 3 generations of women here at this table right now. Coy's the baby. I'm the auntie. And
I'm the grandmama.
We got grandmama, mama.
I'm granny.
Mama, yes. When you hear people, because obviously you're talking to folks in the lines, right?
Right.
So obviously they get the message, they get the
Right.
joke. But do you ever find yourself encountering folks who are like, nah, I'm just not doing it. I'm just not doing it. They're not going to listen to me. I'm not voting anymore.
Well, I've had people to walk away to my, what is that? And just walk away, So I just go to the next person. Okay, I don't waste my time because if they don't want to listen, they're not going to listen.
Right.
So I just keep going down the line. It's a long line.
Somebody's going to listen. Right. Coy, for you, especially in your age group, younger people, 20-somethings, 30-somethings, what's that conversation like? Because there is a lot of apathy, and I try not to blame the young folks because every generation, every decade has some folks who are like, I'm not doing it anymore. What do you say?
Oh, goodness. Okay. I've gotten a plethora of responses, like how I reiterated in the PSA. They're going to pick who they're going to pick, shawty. I've literally heard that. I've heard people say, oh, God's going to cast my vote. I've heard people say, I'm just not participating because, the election is rigged and, everything is going to go the way they want to. And, it's two evils and I just don't want to pick one. And I'm like, well, like my father used to explain to me, not voting for someone is the same as casting a vote for the person that you don't want. And so I try to explain it in a way that people understand, and I try to give the importance. I let them know, like, my parents went through similar things as Miss Loretta. They were born under segregation, and then they had to come through the civil rights as well. I don't know if they had a poll tax. They might have, they may not have. However, this is something that is very recent. Hasn't even been 70 years ago that we're seeing people amongst us that were told you can't vote just because of the color of your skin.
Right.
This is why it's important.
That was your case, right? You served in the Air Force, came back, and it still didn't. You couldn't vote.
Could not vote.
It was I don't want to put an adjective or word in your mouth. How does that feel to come back?
Well, it's hurting. It's hurting because you think you have done something good for your country, and you expect that when you come home. And even when I was in the Air Force, I came across some, discrimination. Yeah. So then you come home, and like I say, you've done this for your country, and you expect your country to give back to you, and you don't get that. Yeah. So it's very hurting.
Do you both feel like voting is your way of giving back to the country? When folks say, this didn't feel like my country.
It's one of the ways. It's one of the ways that we can participate. We can also participate by helping people become educated on what they're voting for, who they're voting for. And hey, if you so see fit that these persons that are in office aren't doing their job, maybe you should consider running as well. Yeah. There are a lot of different political offices that need seats filled with people like me. We need more representation from my generation. Yeah. A lot of us don't relate as well because I don't see many people in office anywhere that looks like me. Right. Everybody else is an older generation. We need someone in my generation to speak to my generation.
And I think, and part of, I know what both of you spend a lot of time talking about is the down ballot. It's not just the two, usually men names at the top, right? It's the public policy issues that are up on the table. It's the, the taxes, right? There's so many other things that come up when we're going to the polls and some people walk in and have not even looked at the ballot. How important is it to do the research?
Well, it is because the fact that what's on the down ballot is going to affect you daily. Like coming up in May, there are some taxes on our ballot in Atlanta, and people don't read before they go. And they just go and then go eeny meeny. Right. And
it is written and crafted by attorneys who are using,
language that you need.
That not everybody, sometimes I just didn't like, wait, now what is this asking me? Am I paying for it? Am I not? What does this mean? Right. So I think it's important to have those conversations as well. Before we wrap up here, was there a final thought? And obviously, Ms. Loretta, I want to give you the last word, but to you, Coy, especially in this cycle, when we've got people saying, okay, normally I vote, but this time I'm just convinced it's not going to matter. Make the case. And you've touched on it. What is at stake?
Your livelihood is at stake. Your peace of mind is at stake. You cannot complain if you did not participate. I don't think a lot of people are going to leave this country just because of who's in office and who's not in office. Let's just be realistic here. what is the easiest thing that you can do? You can take about 5 to 15 minutes to educate yourself on what's on the ballot, who's on the ballot, and make an informed decision for yourself.
How old were you when you registered to vote?
I was 18 years old. I was attending Jackson State University, and I made sure to go down to the Student Center and vote.
Yeah, yeah. And we know you 1960, 25 years old. You have the last word, Miss Loretta.
Well, like I agree with Corey 100%, and I'm glad that to see young people involved. I mean, that's one of my main things, is to get our younger generation, pass it on to them so they know what voting is about. Educate them on why they should be voting and the importance of voting, and that, you know, it affects you long term. You know, you may think, oh, well, I don't know, that ain't, but had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But if you're voting for a tax on the down ballot that may be good for 5-10 years, it's going to affect you.
Right.
So everything on the ballot affects you in some kind of way. And that's why you should educate yourself before you go into the box to vote, to know what you're voting for and to be thorough about it and make an informed decision. You know, you may not agree with everything on there, but you need to make a decision.
You need to weigh in.
You need to weigh in. You may not agree with everyone that's on there, but there may be one that's better than the other. So you need to make an informed decision.
Long term.
And if you don't vote, that's just like the first day, you're voting for somebody if you don't vote, because somebody's going to win. So you're making a decision either way.
Wonderful. Ladies, I thank you so much for being a part of this coming conversation, Portia, Raw and Real. So apparently we're going to class with polls, from polls to polls.
Okay.
There's the raw part. And the real part is, I love how both of you continue to make it very clear how important it is for all of us. For all of us to participate in this democracy of ours.
18 and up.
18 and up, yes. Go.
18 up to 60 to 89.
You just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep
going.
voting. Ladies, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning into another episode of Portia, Raw and Real. We look forward to seeing you weekdays on The Portia Show. Check us out on Fox Soul. You can go to portiashow.com. And of course, you can get this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and listening.